O.J. Simpson, the trial of the century. It was a quiet Sunday evening in Brentwood, a wealthy neighborhood in Los Angeles. Families were winding down from the weekend, restaurants were closing, and the streets glowed with the soft, golden haze of summer lights. At around 10:15 p.m., Nicole Brown Simpson returned to her townhouse at 875 South Bundy Drive. Earlier that evening, she had attended her daughter's dance recital and later shared dinner with friends and family at the Italian restaurant Mezzaluna Trattoria. One of the waiters, Ronald Goldman, a 25-year-old with aspirations of acting and modeling, would later play an unexpected and tragic role in the events of that night. Shortly before midnight, neighbors noticed Nicole's Akita, Kato, barking furiously. Some reported hearing strange noise outside. By 12:10 a.m., a passersby discovered a gruesome scene. Two bodies sprawled near the front walkway of Nicole's condo. Nicole Brown Simpson, 35 years old, had been stabbed multiple times. Her throat was slashed so deeply that she was nearly decapitated. Beside her lay Ronald Goldman, stabbed repeatedly, his body bearing defensive wounds that told the story of a desperate struggle. Blood pooled on the ground. The barking Akita, with blood on its paws, wandered near the bodies. Police were called immediately. By the time Los Angeles police officers arrived, the crime scene was chaos. Neighbors gathered, sirens flashed, and investigators began their work. The brutality shocked even seasoned detectives. But soon, one name rose to the forefront: Orenthal James Simpson. The evidence, physical, circumstantial, and forensic, would soon make Simpson not just a suspect but the centerpiece of the most sensational trial in American history. Orenthal James Simpson, better known as O.J., was born on July 9, 1947, in San Francisco, California. His childhood was far from easy. Raised in the housing projects of Potrero Hill, Simpson grew up in poverty. His father, Jimmy Lee Simpson, left the family when O.J. was young, and his mother, Eunice, worked long hours as a hospital administrator to support her children. As a child, O.J. battled rickets, a disease caused by vitamin deficiency that left his legs bowed. For a time, doctors wondered if he would ever walk normally, let alone run. But through determination and strength, O.J. overcame these physical struggles. By his teenage years, he had developed remarkable athletic ability, particularly in football. At Galileo High School, he emerged as a promising running back. His natural speed and agility caught the attention of college scouts. By the time he transferred to the University of Southern California, USC, O.J. was already seen as one of the most electrifying players in the nation. At USC, Simpson's legend was cemented. In 1967, he led the Trojans to a dramatic victory over UCLA with a legendary 64-yard touchdown run. The following year, he won the Heisman Trophy, awarded to the best player in college football. By the late 1960s, O.J. was not just a football player, he was a national icon. Known as the Juice, his speed, charisma, and smile made him a household name. In 1969, O.J. was drafted by the Buffalo Bills in the first round of the NFL draft. His professional career started slowly, but by 1973, he made history. That year, he rushed for 2,003 yards, becoming the first player in NFL history to surpass the 2,000-yard mark in a single season. His athleticism transformed him into one of the most celebrated running backs in football history. Fans admired his fluid, effortless running style. Commentators described him as unstoppable. But O.J. wasn't content to remain just an athlete. He parlayed his fame into acting, sports broadcasting, and endorsements. He became a spokesperson for Hertz rental cars, starring in commercials where he sprinted through airports in his trademark style. In Hollywood, he appeared in films like The Towering Inferno 1974 and the Naked Gun series. By the 1980s, O.J. had successfully crossed over into mainstream celebrity culture. He was one of the first Black athletes to achieve this level of commercial success, breaking barriers in advertising and entertainment. But fame carried shadows. Behind the glitz of endorsements and movie sets, his personal life was turbulent. In 1977, while still married to his first wife, Marguerite Whitley, O.J. Simpson met Nicole Brown. She was 18 years old, working as a waitress at the Daisy, a Beverly Hills nightclub. O.J. was immediately taken by her beauty and charm. By 1979, Simpson divorced Marguerite, and his relationship with Nicole grew more serious. They married in 1985 and had 2 children together: Sydney, born in 1985, and Justin, born in 1988. From the outside, the couple appeared to embody the glamorous Los Angeles lifestyle. They lived in Brentwood, surrounded by luxury, wealth, and celebrity friends. Nicole was often photographed alongside OJ at social events, and together they projected an image of success and happiness. But behind closed doors, the reality was far darker. Police records and court testimony later revealed a pattern of abuse throughout OJ and Nicole's marriage. Friends reported seeing bruises on Nicole. On multiple occasions, police were called to the Simpson residence to respond to domestic disturbances. The most significant incident occurred in 1989 when Nicole called 911 and reported that OJ had physically assaulted her. Officers responding to the scene documented injuries consistent with her claims. OJ was arrested and later pleaded no contest to spousal battery, receiving community service and probation. Despite this, the cycle of abuse continued. Nicole confided to friends that she feared OJ would one day kill her. In letters and diaries later introduced during the trial, she described incidents of violence, jealousy, and control. By 1992, Nicole filed for divorce. Though their marriage officially ended, their relationship remained entangled. OJ continued to visit, and at times they attempted reconciliation. But tensions, fueled by jealousy and volatility, never disappeared. Friends later testified that Nicole wanted to move on, to live her life free of OJ's control. But she worried about his temper, and about the shadow he continued to cast over her freedom. On Sunday, June 12, 1994, Nicole Brown spent much of the day with her children. That evening, she attended her daughter Sydney's dance recital, where O.J. Simpson was also present. Afterward, Nicole went to dinner with family and friends at Mezzaluna Trattoria, a popular Brentwood restaurant. Ronald Goldman, a waiter at Mezzaluna, was working that night. Nicole's mother accidentally left her sunglasses at the restaurant, and Goldman offered to return them to Nicole's home after his shift. At approximately 10:15 p.m., Nicole arrived back at her condominium on Bundy Drive. Sometime between 10:15 p.m. and 10:40 p.m., the murders took place. The exact timeline remains debated, but forensic evidence and witness testimony suggest that Nicole was attacked outside her home, near the front walkway. She suffered multiple stab wounds, including a deep slash across her throat. Goldman, arriving shortly after, likely encountered the attack and attempted to defend Nicole. He was stabbed multiple times, sustaining wounds consistent with a violent struggle. Neighbors later testified to hearing the frantic barking of Nicole's Akita. Around midnight, the dog, with blood on its paws, was found wandering the neighborhood. It eventually led neighbors to the bodies, where the brutal crime scene was discovered. At 12:10 a.m., the LAPD was called. Officers arrived and secured the area. Detectives quickly identified the victims and began gathering evidence. Among the first officers to arrive was Detective Mark Furman, a veteran of the LAPD. His presence, and later his credibility, would become central issues in the trial that followed. The brutality of the murders shocked investigators. But as they examined the scene, blood evidence, footprints, and a single bloody glove began to tell a story, one that pointed directly toward O.J. Simpson. When LAPD detectives began combing the crime scene on Bundy Drive in the early hours of June 13, 1994, their initial findings immediately raised suspicion toward O.J. Simpson. Blood drops leading away from the scene suggested the killer might have been injured during the attack. Near the bodies, investigators found a bloody leather glove. A second glove, matching in brand and size, would later be discovered at Simpson's Rockingham estate. Detectives noted that Simpson had cuts on his left hand when interviewed later that morning. His explanation, that he had injured himself while fiddling with a glass the previous night, did little to calm suspicion. Police investigators also discovered blood in and around Simpson's white Ford Bronco. DNA testing later confirmed that some of the blood matched Nicole and Goldman. Though O.J. was not formally arrested that morning, the focus of the investigation narrowed quickly. Within hours, the story of Nicole's murder and Simpson's possible involvement dominated the national news cycle. On June 13th, LAPD detectives questioned Simpson at his Brentwood home. Sitting across from them, Simpson was calm but defensive. He acknowledged his presence at the recital earlier that evening but denied visiting Nicole's home afterward. Detectives noticed inconsistencies in his story. Simpson claimed not to remember details about the cut on his hand, first saying he cut himself on a glass at his home, later suggesting he had injured himself in Chicago, where he flew after the murders. Investigators also collected physical evidence. Blood samples from the Bronco, Simpson's home, and clothing seized by police were all sent to forensic labs. Early results indicated matches between Simpson, Nicole, and Goldman. Meanwhile, O.J. hired a legal team led by Robert Shapiro. Other lawyers would soon join, including Johnny Cochran, F. Lee Bailey, Alan Dershowitz, and Barry Scheck. Together, they would become known as the Dream Team. As the evidence against Simpson mounted, police prepared to arrest him. But what happened next would become one of the most unforgettable spectacles in American criminal history. On June 17, 1994, Simpson was scheduled to turn himself in to police. Instead, he disappeared. When authorities could not locate him, panic set in. His friend and former teammate Al Cowlings soon phoned the LAPD. O.J. was in the back of his white Ford Bronco, armed with a gun, threatening to kill himself. By late afternoon, police cars began trailing the Bronco as it traveled slowly along Los Angeles freeways. Television networks interrupted programming to broadcast the pursuit live. An estimated 95 million people tuned in. What followed was surreal. A slow speed chase, helicopters hovering overhead, thousands of spectators lining overpasses holding signs of support, and O.J. in the back seat, holding a gun to his head as Cowlings pleaded with police to back off. After hours of negotiation, the Bronco finally returned to Simpson's Brentwood estate. Police persuaded O.J. to surrender peacefully. In the vehicle, they found a passport, $8,750 in cash, a fake goatee and mustache, and a loaded .357 Magnum revolver. The chase was not just a turning point in the case. It was a media spectacle unlike anything seen before. O.J. Simpson was now officially charged with 2 counts of murder. From the beginning, Simpson's defense strategy was to fight not just the evidence, but the credibility of the LAPD. Robert Shapiro initially led the defense, but soon yielded the spotlight to Johnny Cochran, a charismatic attorney known for his ability to sway juries. F. Lee Bailey, a veteran trial lawyer, brought courtroom theatrics. Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld specialized in DNA evidence, preparing to challenge the prosecution's forensic case. The prosecution, led by Marcia Clark and Christopher Darden, was equally determined. They believed the DNA evidence was overwhelming, showing that blood at the crime scene, on Simpson's Bronco, and in his home tied him directly to the murders. The trial, set to begin in January 1995, promised to be the most watched in American history. On January 24, 1995, opening statements began in the Los Angeles County Superior Court. The trial was broadcast live on television, drawing millions of viewers daily. The prosecution's case centered on 3 pillars. 1. DNA evidence. Blood from Nicole and Goldman found in Simpson's Bronco, at his home, and on his clothing. 2. History of domestic violence records of police calls, Nicole's diary, and testimony about years of abuse. 3. Timeline. Simpson's whereabouts on the night of the murders, including suspicious gaps. The defense countered with a bold strategy. They argued that Simpson was framed by a racist police department eager to convict a black celebrity. Central to this claim was Detective Mark Foreman. The defense accused him of planting the bloody glove found at Simpson's estate. When recordings later emerged of Foreman making racist remarks in the past, his credibility was destroyed. The trial became more than a murder case. It was a national referendum on race, class, celebrity, and justice in America. Perhaps the most famous moment of the trial came when prosecutor Christopher Darden asked Simpson to try on the bloody gloves. In front of the jury, Simpson struggled to pull them over his hands. He flexed his fingers dramatically, showing they did not fit. Johnny Cochran seized the moment. In his closing arguments, he delivered a phrase that would echo in American culture: "If it doesn't fit, you must acquit." Though prosecutors later argued that the gloves had shrunk due to moisture from blood, the image of O.J. struggling with the gloves had a powerful effect on the jury. The prosecution believed DNA evidence was their strongest weapon. Scientists testified that blood samples tied Simpson to the crime scene with probabilities of error as low as 1 in 170 million. But Barry Scheck and Peter Neufeld attacked the reliability of the LAPD's crime lab. They pointed to sloppy handling, contaminated samples, and chain of custody errors. Their strategy was not to disprove DNA science, but to undermine confidence in the way the evidence had been collected and tested. This worked. Jurors later admitted they were unconvinced by the prosecution's DNA case, seeing it as unreliable. On October 3, 1995, after 9 months of testimony and 4 hours of deliberation, the jury delivered its verdict. Not guilty on both counts of murder. The courtroom erupted, cheers from Simpson supporters, tears from the victims' families. Outside, the verdict divided the nation. Polls showed that most Black Americans believed justice had been served, while most white Americans believed Simpson had gotten away with murder. It was, and remains, one of the most polarizing moments in American legal history. Though Simpson was acquitted in criminal court, the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman filed a wrongful death civil lawsuit against him in 1996. In this case, the rules of evidence were different, and the burden of proof was lower. A preponderance of evidence rather than beyond a reasonable doubt. In 1997, the civil jury found Simpson liable for the deaths and awarded $33.5 million in damages to the families. Simpson, however, claimed he had little money left, and much of the judgment remains unpaid. After the trial, Simpson lived in Florida, where state law allowed him to protect his home from being seized to pay civil damages. He attempted to make money through interviews, appearances, and even a controversial book project titled If I Did It. But his life spiraled further in 2007, when he led a group of men into a Las Vegas hotel room to retrieve sports memorabilia he claimed was stolen from him. Armed and confrontational, the incident led to Simpson being convicted of armed robbery and kidnapping in 2008. This time, there was no dream team. Simpson was sentenced to 33 years in prison, with parole eligibility after 9. In 2017, after serving 9 years, he was granted parole and released. The O.J. Simpson trial remains one of the most significant legal cases in American history. It reshaped public understanding of race, celebrity, media, and justice. It also transformed television news. Networks realized that trials could be packaged as entertainment, creating the blueprint for modern true crime media. For many, Simpson's acquittal symbolized the failures of the justice system. For others, it represented a rare victory for a Black defendant in a system historically biased against them. Today, the trial is still studied in law schools, debated in classrooms, and dramatized in television and film. O.J. Simpson's story is no longer just about football. It is about America itself, with all its complexities, contradictions, and divisions. O.J. Simpson, once celebrated as one of the greatest athletes in history, is now remembered for murder, scandal, and infamy. The smiling face that once sold rental cars and inspired children now symbolizes the blurred line between fame and accountability. For the families of Nicole Brown and Ronald Goldman, the trial brought little closure. For the nation, it left lasting scars and endless questions. If you found this deep dive into the O.J. Simpson case insightful, don't forget to like this video, share it with others who follow true crime, and subscribe to True Crime Spectrum for more investigative stories. Hit the bell icon so you never miss an update. Thank you for watching.